Okay, we're doing an interview with a single parent, and can you just tell us what your name is?
My name is Donna Mulatto.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a series of questions
Okay.
about your relationship and everything else. So, how old were you when you met your spouse?
23 years old.
23?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And can you describe your courtship?
Well, I knew about him from high school. He had dated one of my friends, and this was after high school, about a year after. I was at a local pub with some friends, and I walked in, and he was there with his friends, and they were 2 years older than us. They graduated 2 years before us, and we started talking to them, and he asked me at the end of the night if I'd go on a date with him, and 2 days later he called me, and we went on a date.
And were problems evident during this relationship?
No, not that I could see. We dated about 4 years before we got married, and no, everything seemed fine.
And why did you decide to get married?
Well, in those days, back when people got married around 23 years old, that's when I got married. It was a thing to do. All my friends were getting married. I really thought I was in love. We seemed to really get along and have a lot of common interests. We both liked to work hard, and we both had good jobs, and we both went to college, and we both had the same dreams to own a house and have kids. And it just seemed like he was going to be the one for me.
Okay, can you describe your engagement to us?
My engagement? What do you mean by my engagement?
Like, how was it? Where'd you go?
Basically, we talked about getting married, and we went down to the Diamond District in New York. We looked at rings, and I picked a ring out, and I guess I picked a few rings, and then one day, a few weeks later, he asked me to marry him. It was just simple. It was inside the house, nothing fancy, and I said yes.
How old are you when you got married?
23.
23. Okay. And what were you looking for in a spouse?
I was looking somewhat for someone who was similar to me, that we were both career-oriented, and we wanted to have a house. I had lived in an apartment my whole life. I didn't get to live in a house till I was older. My parents struggled with money, so I always wanted to have a good career and earn a good living. I loved to travel. We both had a lot of mutual friends because we both graduated from the same high school, just 2 years apart. So we had a big group of friends, and we always just had a great time together, and I was in love.
And how does the reality of a marriage compare to your expectations of what marriage would be? So, like, when you guys actually got married, how does it compare to your expectations?
Well, I mean, when we first got married, we were both young, so we had no children, so we both worked hard, and on weekends we'd go out with our friends, and sometimes we'd see our friends. I'd go out with my girlfriends, and he'd go out with his guy friends, so it seemed fine. I was excited to live on my own. I lived with my mother, so I mean, it seemed fine at the beginning, until there were some issues that came up.
So, when you guys had children, how did the children affect the marriage?
Well, actually, I want to go back a bit to the last question because I just realized about a year after, not even a year, about a few months after we were married, I found out that my husband had a gambling problem. So that's when things started to be a little scary for me because I found out he owed a lot of money. He promised me he wouldn't do it again, and so I believed him, and it continued and continued.
Right, and then you guys had children.
And then I thought things were better. I thought that he had stopped his problem, stopped gambling, and so I decided to have a child. But prior to having a child, we were once separated for 6 months, but then we got back together. We decided to have children. I thought everything seemed fine. And then a few years after I had a child, I found out again that he had some serious problems with money. And
right, but how did the children affect the marriage?
well, children affects marriages. It puts a strain on marriage because I still had to work. I had a career, so I had to work full time, and I had to get a babysitter, and I still had to come home and do my job. So I had 2 jobs: my career job, and my mom job. And so it puts a strain on the marriage because, you spend less time with your spouse. We had other issues going on between my spouse and I. And so it's not easy, but I still loved having children. I was glad to have them.
Okay, and not really referring to your marriage, but from your own perspective, how important do you consider money in marriage?
Well, I always worked hard for my money. So money is important if you have to pay your bills and if you have to put food on the table. And so you need money to do that and to support your children. So that's where the money is important. And if both people are working hard, then it's not a problem. If one person's working hard and supporting everybody and the other person's not, then it's a problem. It's a problem in a marriage.
And what would you do differently about your marriage if you could?
If I could about my marriage?
Would you approach it differently?
I probably would have gotten divorced sooner than I did. I waited 27 years to get divorced.
Right. Because you didn't get divorced, you had 2 children.
No, I stayed married because I had 2 children.
Right. And how did you feel like? Did you feel like that was the only thing holding you on to the marriage, or?
Yes.
Was the children?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the most difficult thing about being married? When you were married?
The abuse that I took and kept it inside.
And what's the most difficult thing about being divorced?
I don't have a problem being divorced. I guess the most difficult thing for me is to see my children have to be affected by it. Okay. Personally, me, I have no problem with it, but, I worry about my children.
And for the last question, what advice would you give teenagers when it comes to marrying?
I think that it's very important when you're involved in a relationship and you think you're going to get married, that you should talk about all types of things like finances, how are you going to handle them, if you have the same dreams, if you have the same goals. You should look for clues. Now that I look back, there were clues that my husband had a gambling problem. I wasn't aware of them at the time because I was naive to those type of things, and drinking problem. So I would always look for clues and try to really get to know somebody, even maybe live with them before you get married, because that's when you get to really see things that you don't see.
Right. And when you say a gambling problem, what would you consider that? Like, would you consider that a sin or just like a problem that could be solved?
I think it's a problem that people can solve and work on if they want to, but many people don't admit to themselves that they have a problem because they surround themselves with people who have similar problems and they think that it's just normal to do that type of behavior. It's like a drinking problem. Usually drinking and gambling go hand in hand. And
do you think that, like, it was kind of your fault that you didn't catch it before you got married?
No, I caught it right away. Only a few months, because I had people calling my house saying I wheeled the money. But I think that I was naive in thinking that he was going to get better and that he wasn't going to happen again. I heard it over and over. He just got better at hiding it and lying to me all those years. And I kept taking it because, I'm a Catholic and I believed in for better or for worse, but I just didn't realize that I had crossed the line of worse a long time ago. As the years gone on, it got worse, and the drinking got worse, and the abuse got worse.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, just when you're in a relationship, you just should. I don't think it's a good idea to get married young, because when you're young, you don't see things you do when you're a little bit older. And like I said, I think it's important to get to really know somebody and not just look at their physical beauty. You have to look and see what's inside. And also, you should know to look at what's going on in the house of the parents of the people that you're going to consider marrying. What kind of relationship the parents have. I think that's important.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.